Welcome to the I Am You podcast. I am your host, Dr. Nitza Alvarez, a board-certified cardiologist and best-selling author. My hope with this podcast is to share stories so women can speak up and become the CEO of their own health. I am a cardiologist. I am a wife. I am a mother. My story is your story. I am you. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the I Am You podcast. Today, I'm here joined by Eleanor. Eleanor, welcome. And thank you for accepting the invitation to come and share your story.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Eleanor, you, ever since we met, you have been like this typical perfect picture of health. No, so you've been a woman that always been very conscious of health. Is that correct? Always been very conscious of health?
No, I became conscious of health when I retired, and I decided it was finally time to take care of me. Stop worrying about everybody else. They're now where they should be. And I decided I would start working out for the first time in my life. I was always graced with a high metabolism, so I didn't have a weight problem per se, but I was not in good shape. So I set out to make sure I was healthy. I did all the right things. I started eating healthy. I started exercising. So in my lab work every year, saw my doctor regularly. I was fit, and I thought everything was perfect.
When did you retire? How many years ago?
12 years ago.
12 years ago. Mm-hmm. So 12 years ago, you said, I have to put myself as a priority. You have been taking care of others. You're a wife. You have kids.
Mm-hmm, a mother.
And a mother. You know, you have a family to care for. And then what makes you decide, like, this is time, retirement? Well, how come retirement marked that moment for you?
Well, basically, I am such a type A personality. What else was I going to do? But that's not altogether true. I just decided I was going to live to be 100 unless God decided otherwise. But in the meantime, I was going to give him no reason to take me too early. So
I love
seriously,
that. I love that. It's like, I'm going to put the effort. So
Right.
I'm not going to give you no reason to take me too early. So you decided that I'm going to just be taking charge of my health. And that's when I met you, you were already retired. So that's for
Yes.
me, it was like, well, you were already working on your lifestyle, being very mindful of your diet or keeping the body moving. You actually help other people also with your with the bone building.
Yes,
and,
I do.
And
I
classes
teach a
and
class.
stuff.
Yes.
And so why do you see doctors? Because for somebody like you, anybody will be like, well, you're healthy. So why do you see a doctor?
Just an annual checkup, making sure my cholesterol was right, making sure my labs were correct. I had no risks. I didn't have any elevation. Everything was well within the normal range. My weight, my sugar, everything I wanted, that I was doing everything I could. I read, when I found out there was a higher risk as you age for memory loss, I did all my reading. I made sure I did the right Mediterranean diet. I really did. I was very proud. So when I was invited to come hear you speak, I said no.
You're talking about one of my events.
I did.
Somebody told you, oh, you should go and see Dr. Alvarez at one of her events.
We're all going to go, this group of ladies. And I said, I'm not going to go at night and hear a cardiologist speak.
And why was that?
Why would I need a cardiologist? All my labs were perfect. Everything. And even you have commented, Dr. Alvarez, when you've seen my labs, that your doctor must love these results because they are terrific. Now, I'm also gifted with great DNA. So I'm not taking all the credit, but I didn't do anything I shouldn't necessarily be doing. I limit my fun red wine to 3 or 4 glasses a week, and I do the right things. So I went reluctantly.
But even for somebody like you that has been very, very active and proactive, you do recognize the importance of seeing your doctor. At that moment, you were seeing your primary doctor because, of course, the evaluation not only confirmed that what you're doing is working, but also those checkups are valuable in the journey to make sure that everything is okay, not just assuming that everything is okay.
That is correct. And I'll give you another example. I had, prior to retirement, was told I had osteopenia and that I would probably go into osteoporosis if for no other reason I wasn't exercising, I wasn't walking, I wasn't doing that bone building activity. And so I immediately dove into learning more about it. What could I do? And when I found out that Tufts Medical had done a study and had come out with a program, I immediately got certified in that program so I could teach it here in the villages. So I've been teaching first I attended the class for about 5 years and wanted it more on my schedule. So I've been teaching the class now for about 6 years. And I just, you can't leave your health up to someone else. So that led me to believe, though, I had nothing wrong with me. I was the walking specimen of what everyone should be at 70 years old before I saw you. And then I wasn't.
Okay, so let's take us back to reluctantly I went to that event.
I did.
And then you went to the event, and what did you hear there that you said, oh?
I think, Dr. Alvarez, I could give that presentation in your absence. I've given it so many times.
Oh, that is so cool.
But it's
Eleanor.
true. It is true because you started that night, and I can tell you all the little anecdotes that my eyes got bigger and bigger, and about being proactive. And the fact that I had no idea that I would more than likely have a cardiac incident if I didn't get proactive, because it is the number one killer of women, heart-related issues. And I just couldn't believe it. And you had the women stand in the room that day that you either gave the heart or the circle to. I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe what I was hearing that I didn't know. And so I immediately called and made an appointment to
So
see
until
you.
then, you didn't thought of heart disease being your health threat?
Didn't even think about it. Didn't cross my mind, because surely in one of these pages of tests they give us every year of lab work, I would have found it. Somebody would have said, oh, you have an elevated risk. No heart issues in my family. I was fine. And then I went through your basic tests to get all 4 of them done, all the baselines done. And when I got the results from your nurse practitioner, and we started the conversation with, Dr. Alvarez would like me to go over your routine. And I said, excuse me? I said, but I put all that in the 25 pages I had to fill out to see her. She said, no, let's go over it. I said, are you telling me you found something? And she looked at me and said, that's exactly what I'm telling you. And I said, I'm sorry, could you stop and go look and make sure those are my tests? And she said, Mrs. Barnard, we found it in your ultrasound and in your stress test. And she said, didn't you realize something was odd when they stopped the stress test? I said, what would I know? It was the first stress test I ever had. I thought that was normal. She said, but it wasn't. And she went over my results with me and said, you have diastolic dysfunction. And I said, okay, so let's start with what is it? And then she said, you have stage 2. I was never more surprised.
Like giving you a diagnosis of cancer stage 2, and you're like, what?
That's exactly
because of course for you, again, one more time, is like I'm healthy, I feel good.
Right.
Well, how can everything?
How did I not know this till now? And I think by then I was maybe 72 or 73, and I said, this can't be real. This is just not real.
So, Eleanor, will it be correct to say that you, before you went to the talk and understood that heart disease is still our number one health threat, and many times it's because we don't get checked? Yes?
Oh, yes.
Do you ever heard that from any other doctor? Did any other of the doctors that were actually checking for other stuff like osteopenia, osteoporosis, breast cancer? Because we all go for what we call the bikini approach. No,
Right.
We have the mammogram, we have the pap smear. Did they ever suggest that, Eleanor, you have more risk of dying from heart disease than any other cancers combined? Have they ever suggested to get checked for your heart?
No, not at all. And
what do you think that is?
I think it is something that it's a, first of all, the doctors are reactive. They're not proactive. There's no one sitting, and I think I have wonderful primary care. I do. I have a wonderful primary care physician, and she is so proactive in other ways. But in this way, we are in complete disagreement. I just think it's a huge part of the care that does not get addressed.
Tell us the story that you were sharing with me before we came here about when you notify your doctor that you were going to go and see a cardiologist. What happened there?
I went in for my checkup and I said, by the way, I said, I have an appointment to see Dr. Alvarez. She said, Dr. Alvarez, the cardiologist? And I said, yes. She said, what for? I said, I don't know, but we're going to find out. I said, I heard her speak, and I couldn't believe what I didn't know. I couldn't believe how I was not being proactive on one of the biggest risks I have as I age. I said, and I think I'm addressing everything proactively, but I'm ignoring this. You do not need to see a cardiologist. Exact words. And I said, I'm not asking your permission, and I am not asking you for a referral. I don't need either. But I'm telling you now, I am going to see Dr. Alvarez. I already have my appointment. And it was a real terse conversation, not conflicting, but strong. And I think had I not been as determined, I would have been dissuaded from going.
We need more Eleanors in the world, no? Because not only you said, no, I'm going. Like, no, I love the fact when you said, I'm not asking for your permission. I'm just letting you know,
right.
No? And so many times because somebody look good, now, what do you need her for? You're great. You're exercising. Your numbers look good, no? And then so many women they look good. And then when we said, it's like, what is it that you look good? Like, you don't know until you know. Like you said, okay, there are certain tests that I have never gone through it, that I don't even know if they're good or not, no?
Right.
So in this case, you had to advocate for your own self, present yourself in front of a doctor. You be honest, but of course, not everybody has the energy and that power like you do. We say, well, I'm going, even, no? So many women probably will mention something or perhaps ask for permission because we have a tendency to ask for permission. I don't know why. It's cultural. It's like we're asking the doctor, do you think it's a good idea for me to go and see a cardiologist, even though deep inside they know it's a good idea, but we need somebody to tell us it's okay. In your case, you said, I'm still going to go.
I find it outrageous that it's not part of a routine care for any person, especially women, with the risk that we have. Is it over 60 or is it over 50? I'm not sure. But how is it not something that we're told to look at and address? And, that's part of what you touched on that night that when you spoke, that I was listening to you and you said, the American Heart Association has failed women. And I say they continue to fail women. And I sent quite a letter out with your original docuseries that said, click on this link, every one of you. I said, this is her first episode, but I want to tell you about my meeting, the way I met Dr. Alvarez. Yes, she's my cardiologist, but not just because I heard her speak, because I believe in her whole foundation and philosophy and commitment to women. So if you don't have a cardiologist, most of you on this email are of my age or somewhere close to it. They lie. And so they don't want to admit they're my age. But I said, so why don't you? Why don't you have a cardiologist, and why don't you know for sure that you don't have something you should be watching?
Eleanor, that is actually my ultimate goal with this podcast, with the docuseries, with my books, with the education through my patients, is to have extension in the community just like you, where you hear the message resonated with you and you believe in prevention, and then prevention of disease, prevention of premature deaths. But you didn't just took the information and act on you. You went beyond that and started sharing with your friends and neighbors, and you insist on it. And so many of them might not understand why, but the more we speak about it and we share our stories, which is what we're doing today, then more women are going to be listening to your story today and say, well, Eleanor is super healthy and she still got her heart checked. And the ultimate goal is that if we identify things in a timely manner, like in your case, it's not a life-threatening condition. No, it's not something that it will end your life. But at the same time, if we can do something different to adjust something in your lifestyle, your diet, or your physical activity, sometimes it requires medication. But if your doctor don't know, how can they actually help you? So in your case, you discover some information that help you be a little bit more proactive. But I think that the message here is you don't know until you know. Like, how can you tell that you're okay if you don't know? But more so, why are we not being advocating for women's heart health? And if you were to send a message to the listeners today, those women that are listening to us today, what would you say to them?
Be proactive. Take care of yourself. If you don't know if you have a problem, don't you think you should find out? Be reassured, especially as you get older. And as you said, Dr. Alvarez, I am not heavy, but I have modified my life since this. And I make sure now that I don't do my Disney walk, as I call it, versus a cardio walk. And, there are nights I'm beating on my Fitbit saying, I know I've had more cardio than this. Keep going, because I'm very much now proactive in this as I am in many things. But if we don't take ownership of this, you're going to be reactive. And that's when everybody wants to step in and tell you everything you never did, but that you never knew to do.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And then another thing that I wanted to share with the audience is also the fact that many times insurances might not be okay either with the evaluations that we had to do in order to be preventive. No, we have many ways of addressing that. One is we had to continue to speak about the importance because mammograms were not covered in history. At the beginning, with the invention of mammographies, they were not covered by insurance as a preventive measure for breast cancer and as a screening method. And then eventually, the more we talk about it and the importance that was to reduce the risk of women that we're bearing because of cancer, then now it's part of our routine check for women. So the more we continue to insist on the importance of detecting heart disease at an early stages, ideally it should be preventing the heart disease,
right.
But at least if we can detect it early. If we know that more women die from heart disease than from cancer, in what brain it makes sense that you cover a mammogram but you don't cover a simple test for your heart checkup, no, like CT calcium score, an echocardiogram, a stress test, walking on a treadmill, no? So then you say, okay, so we're trying to save women from cancer, but that is not our number one killer. But the point is that we are not there yet. So sometimes insurances are not going to want to cover that. And then we said, okay, so we can be an Eleanor, like a tiger, and call them and say, oh, I'm getting this test done, no? And try to make them be accountable for that. But we also have to be willing to invest sometimes. I know that healthcare system is not necessarily an inexpensive, I should say, investment. But when we think about a woman like you that wants to know everything and wants to be proactive, sometimes we have to make a little bit of investment. So if we're lucky that the insurance will cover those preliminary tests or baseline tests, is ideal. But I don't think that we should allow them to put a price to our health. And, when I discuss in my talks about not necessarily the healthcare insurances, the health insurances are for the health. No, it's for the ill, it's for the sick. And that is important that we recognize that just because the insurance didn't cover, that doesn't mean that it would not be valuable. Do you have anything to mention about
Oh, yes. I don't know what you say in all of your talks that you do, but the one you gave that I listened to, I have repeated this to everyone, especially those who tell me just that.
So you definitely memorized my talk.
Oh, I did. I could
watch out for her.
But you said, how many of you people in this room, because there were some men there, but not many, how many of you drive a vehicle? And of course, every hand went up. And then you said, well, the last time you got an oil change in your car, who paid for it? Did you send it to your insurance company? And there was a chuckle in the room. And how about those 4 tires? When you needed those 4 tires, did you go and send that bill to the insurance company? Now everyone's getting quiet because they're getting your message. And then you said, well, let me just say, you've just invested in something you're probably going to get rid of in 2 years or 3 years or maybe even sooner. But you have one heart. And if you won't make the investment in you, then don't be surprised when you wake up and have a serious problem because you didn't know it was coming.
Oh my God, you said that better than me. I'm going to bring you into my talk of February. That's what you said.
No.
What?
It was riveting. It was riveting. And I thought, oh my gosh, how right you were. And of course, if I can, I'll mention one other thing that you did that day. How many people in this room have had their calcium score done? of course, my hand was up. And then you said, how many had a score of over 200, I think? Well, I have 0. So once again, I'm shocked. I have a heart problem. I have 0 calcium. I like wear it a banner or a shirt or something.
My calcium score is 0?
Yes.
We should make a shirt that says my calcium score is 0.
But
what's your calcium score? We should have that one. What's
your calcium score? No, I say this to people all the time. But my friend that I made get it when I got mine, hers is well over 200. And she said that you said, let me see if I know the few people that not many people had it done. But those of you who are over 200, let me see if I know what the doctor did for you. They put you on a statin because that's what they do to all men. Are you a man? Do you know if a statin is going to help you as a woman? So again, driving home the point, so little is known for women. No wonder it's the number one killer. What do we know? So you can say the American Heart Association might have failed women, but overall, the whole medical profession is overlooking the number one leading indicator of a woman's biggest health risk.
Yeah, the system has failed us. The system failed to recognize us, to treat us properly, and that's why we continue to bury so many women. And like I said in my talks, finally the American Heart Association stood up for us about 100 years of existence of the association. There's hope. There's hope that conversation like this one that we're having with new research that now people are more interested in understanding how are we different, but we still have a long way to go. And that's why we're here today, because we need to help women advocate for themselves until we get a system that is there for them. And we cannot rely on a system because the system is not ready they don't see us. They don't see us. Eleanor, this is awesome. Is there anything else that you want to say?
No.
This was amazing. This is amazing.
Thank you.
I thank you. Thank you for being so candid. Thank you for being an advocate for so many. And thank you for being the voice for so many women that don't speak up and for so many women that already died because they didn't know.
They didn't.
And this is for them, and this is for the ones that are still there that don't know what to do. We just said, just speak up. No?
Right.
This is it for today's episode of I Am You. Thank you for joining us. I hope this episode has empowered you to be the CEO of your own health. Tune into our next episode, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at NITZAMD. To explore more on this and related topics, visit our website, NITZAMD.com. If this episode resonated with you, please like and subscribe. And one more thing, share with the wonderful woman in your life.